Testing. All right, good morning, everyone. It is 11:02 a.m., and we will call the November 13th, 2020 Electric Utility Board meeting to order. First order of business here, we'd like to welcome Solomon Fields, who was appointed, I guess, last month by us, and the City Council approved it at their meetings over the past 30 days as well. So Solomon, thank you for serving. Welcome to the board, and appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Public comment. Matt Rose?
Nobody signed up to speak.
No emails, no one signed up?
No, sir.
Okay. Easy breezy. All right, we will now recess into executive session in accordance with VTCA Government Code 551.086 on competitive matters of LP&L and VTCA Government Code 551.071 seeking advice of and consultation with LP&L's attorneys, and VTCA Government Code 551.072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, and value of real property. We are now recessing exec. On the call, Brandon, we've got Miss Joy. I think we're going upstairs.
You said I didn't hear it.
Anyone else on? Miss Joy and
Yeah. I'm here.
Sheila?
Hello, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going.
Morning, Sheila. Hope you're doing all right.
And I'm here too.
The isolation is the biggest problem I have.
Convening right now.
But they're getting ready to go to the exec.
Kevin, you on?
Pull Bill out and I'll cover.
Nope. Okay.
Okay.
I'm on.
Jane is on. She's on. All right. If y'all would, you've got the link that Mr. McCullough sent over. Click out of that and click over into that Zoom link, and we will see you guys up on video upstairs. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's 1:15, or not 1:15, 12:15, and we will reconvene into open session. Item 6, we need to approve the minutes from the regular EUB board meeting, October 20th, 2020. I think everyone's had a chance to read those. Any changes or anything there? Not will entertain a motion.
Move
Motion from Mr.
approval.
Schultz.
Second.
Second. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed by the same? Carries. Kevin,
Yes, sir.
you good with the minutes?
Yes, I actually motioned to approve them and then said yes, so I'm good.
Okay, perfect. All right, item 7. Mr. McCullough.
Get the highlights in the written report, and we've got a few slides to share with you. On page 19, there were, had a lot of news stories about the ice storm, obviously, with the outages and the restoration. But most of the stories were fairly positive about the crew response.
Mr. McCullough, your mic.
Is it on now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, let me start over. Good. On page 19 of the written report, we had quite a few news stories last month focused on the winter storm and LP&L response. Most of the stories were positive, and commending our crews for being out in the field in difficult conditions. I'll talk about the winter storm a little more here. I've got a few slides to show you. On page 28, the distribution production recap sheet, I just wanted to comment a little bit on the system average interruption duration index. You can see we had a big spike in outages related to the ice storm in October. So we've had 3 big events this year. We had a windstorm in March. We had the windstorm in June that took out 100+ poles. And then the ice storm. So it's not been a good year for reliability. All of it's weather related, and but it certainly hasn't helped our statistics. So hopefully the next year will be better. That's all I wanted to comment on there. On page 30, the customer service recap. We're still struggling meeting our key performance index indicators. Call wait times have been long just because we've been so short-staffed. We've had quite a few people out in the call center from the pandemic, and, you know, either direct infection or having to be quarantined because family members had it or whatever. So that's hurt our response levels. And so anyway, we're doing the best we can with what we've got. We did hire a new crew of call center employees. I think they're starting next week and going through orientation. So hopefully getting some reinforcements will help our situation out. Of course, they have to go through a couple of months training before we can really put them out there on their own. So, you know, we had suspended hiring new people as part of our response last year, and so October 1st we posted the positions, and we're just now hiring new people. So, okay, the AMI report on page 31. Not a lot has changed since last month. We're still we're 95.7% complete. There's about 3,000 meters left to install. A lot of those are commercial meters. So we're pretty close to being complete there, but it may take, you know, it may trickle in over the next few months. On the water meters, about the same story. There's about 2,000 service orders remaining for Itron, and the remainder of the meters will be completed by Lubbock staff. There are some issues with the communications, particularly to the water meters. Network performance is not where it should be. So there is a program underway to mitigate and figure out what's going on there and make corrections where all the meters are communicating properly. On page 35, I want to talk about the CIS project recap. Our plan was to go live December 7th, which is, you know, just a few weeks away. We've had some circumstances occur in the last month, and all of it's related to COVID. We've had core team members that have been out. We haven't been able to schedule training. Support staff from Oracle and TGM is not available on site, which they were originally planning on being here during the go live time period. So, and there's still a number of interfaces that are not complete. And just, you know, with staff being out, we just hadn't gotten everything completed that we had hoped to do before we went live. So Andy and I talked about it, and we just felt the risks were too great to go live in December with all the uncertainties, with all the people being shorthanded and the core team members being out. So we have delayed the launch, the go-live launch, from December 7th. It'll be after the first of the year, but we don't have an exact target date in mind right now. We want this to go flawlessly when we launch, and when we go live, it's huge risks. If Mr. Fields can talk about that, he's been in that part of the business before. We want everything to work properly when we go live, and have adequate people around, have the training in place, have the support staff to help us out. So we think it was the right decision to postpone. We probably will have to come back for a change order next month for Oracle and for TGM. Andy, I think, is working on that right now, but that's probably going to result in some impacts to the contract. So, any questions on any of that? I was going to shift gears and talk about the ice storm now.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, got a little too fast there. Okay, so temperatures fell below freezing on Monday, October 26th. Seems awful early to be getting a cold snap like that, but remained below freezing until October 28th. We had almost an inch of precipitation during this period, and it was mostly in the form of freezing rain, which is the worst possible precipitation for a power system. Freezing rain collects to power lines, it collects to trees trees sag down and get into your power lines, limbs break. And the other factor involved in this is all the leaves were still on the trees at the time, so the tree limbs are even heavier than they would normally be if you had already lost their leaves. So here's a chart of the temperature and precipitation during the storm. You can see the blue curve is the temperature, reading on the left-hand scale there, so it was below freezing from the 26th till late in the day on the 28th. And precipitation fell in spurts during that storm, but the worst of it was probably Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Had over 3/10 to 4/10 during that time period, and so that's really when you started seeing the outages. Freezing rain accumulated on trees and power lines. We had numerous outages throughout the entire period, and then as you may not believe this, but as temperatures start thawing or getting above freezing and the lines start thawing, you have a second round of outages, because as the tree limbs start going back up, well, they hit the power lines again and do additional damage. We had one situation, I'll show you a picture of it here in a minute, where we had we've got fiber on top of it, call it OPGW, the fiber shield wire on top of the transmission lines. And so all the lines, as long as they all had ice on them, they were fine, because they were all sagging at the same level. Well, ice started thawing off the transmission lines, and when it went up, it hit the optical ground wire cable, and of course caused a fault current short circuit in that ground wire, and it broke and fell into the lines, and then that's the only transmission line outage we had during the whole event. Didn't create any customer outages, but it was a difficult project to get fixed. So there's the outages during the storm. This is total number of customers out. At the worst, around noon on the 28th, we had about 4,000 customers out. And even after the storm was over on the 29th, it was probably, we had a number of customers still out at the end of the storm, even when temperatures returned to normal. A lot of those were customers that had to get electricians to come out because tree limbs had pulled services off houses and things like that. So it was a week-long event. We had linemen and servicemen working around the clock. Extreme weather conditions, which they seem to always get the extreme weather conditions when they're out there working outages. But we had 45 transmission distribution employees working a total of 3,000 hours during this event. Our transmission operators also worked some long hours, 240 hours, obviously coordinating the outage response. Our EMS administrators also supported from home after hours. And then other work groups, substation streetlight employees were also good to come in and help out as they could, streetlight crews. So here's some photographs of some of the damage. You can see the thickness of the ice in that left-hand picture there. I think it was an inch or better in places around here. Now north of us, they got some 2-inch ice, and that's, Mr. Boatman said he saw a lot of poles down on one, I guess, as he was leaving Lubbock going back to Dallas. But it was bad enough here, but it was certainly a lot worse north and east of here where they had the heavier ice loading. You can see the trees and just the tree limbs coming down and all the commotion there on that line in the middle picture. And then the one on the right is that fiber optics. If you look close, you can see where the line is hanging down on the transmission line there. But that's our tallest bucket. It's a 120-foot reach bucket, and Jenny wants to get a ride in that sometime and go up, check things out. But that's the biggest bucket that we've got. We don't get it out very often, but you can see it was fully extended to try to get to that shield wire and get things corrected there. And then we had some car accidents too that created some problems for us. You can see the pole that's got the apparatus on there, kind of on the right-hand side of the picture, is a lot shorter than it originally was because the car ran through it and broke it off. But so dealing with those kind of things, and then just number of crews out all over town repairing problems. That's kind of it for the ice storm. Any questions on any of that?
Thanks, sir.
Okay, is Mr. Avent here? Mr. Avent is here.
Good afternoon, Board. Same schedule you're used to seeing, a few updates, and a few didn't make it to this schedule when we hit refresh the end of October. I want to make the Board aware of that as the comments on the next page. We'll go through it in depth. The Hawley to Southeast line, we do have about a 2-week delay. We were showing it was supposed to have been through the 1st of November, first week. It's actually pushed to the 21st of November. That's due to the higher power crew. I think they had 9 members of that 20-man crew test positive for COVID. Subsequent of that, they're around the balance of the other crews. So they had to have a full stand down on the Hawley to Southeast project, and that does have some cascading effects to it. So the Thompson to Vicksburg line rework, the Hawley to Slayton started the construction, and the co-op line swap. They're all going to be affected. Thompson to Vicksburg, Hawley to Slayton, we should be able to absorb those small delays. But the co-op line swap, that's another one on this screen that actually is showing 2 weeks later currently than whenever we hit print. So Hawley to Southeast, co-op line swap, both have about a 2-week slide to the right. Those are the main updates for this week, or sorry, this month on that sheet. Going to page 2, under the status updates, so that's where we called out a few of these items. If you kind of go to the middle where it says Hawley to Southeast, that's that quarantine of the balance of the crews. And again, we pushed to the 21st for the in-service date for the Hawley to Southeast line. That's mainly for the transmission portion. There's going to be some balance or some cleanup to do on the distribution, but it's pretty critical to the system to get that line back in service. That's going to be our focus. Let's see. Next one down is the Wadsworth Relay upgrade. Some slight slides in that one as well, just because of the co-op line swap. And again, it's the same contractor on all these T-line projects for us right now, so just some mild slips there. Hawley to Slayton, one other COVID-related delay we have is going to be in the receipt of material. So some of the dead end and the tangent steel poles we're receiving, we have one vendor that is having some COVID delays, so they gave us the opportunity to kind of pick and choose which project was critical. We chose Hawley to Slayton because that's the next T-line project we're starting, and we're going to slightly delay the T-line material for the Dunbar tie-in project. However, we have plenty of time for that one. We're not starting that work until mid-January of next year, so we have time to get that material. And the contractor, the vendor, is working very well with our project management group to ensure it'll get here on time. Those are the big updates for this month. Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Andy, item 9.
All right, good afternoon. I wanted to give you a quick update on the return to normal business practices related to COVID events. And really just point you to page 27 of your agenda book, but this slide shows that page. I just wanted to highlight a couple of the charts on that page. If you look in the top left corner, the load variance, we have started to see that decline again a little bit. We started to see improvements in the August and September timeframe where load was getting back to what we normally would have forecast. We've seen that start to trail off, but we're still only about 4% off of what we would have expected without COVID impacts. Right below that chart is the past dues, and obviously we're still well above where we would have been at this point last year, but we are starting to see a downward trend as we're beginning to disconnect customers who haven't paid for a very long time and help to get those folks back caught up again. So we're starting to see that trend down. It's still elevated, but I think we'll be seeing additional progress, hopefully, over the next several weeks and months. The chart below that is the assistance related to COVID assistance that's out there. I wanted to give you an update. October, the numbers that I had originally were not complete. I have gotten complete numbers for October at this point. We had about 1,331 customers that were obtained assistance for COVID relief in the month of October to the tune of about 162,000. That is down a little bit from where we've been, but it's still relatively in range with what we've seen over the last several months. I did double check, community development does still have COVID relief dollars available. The difference right now, though, is, where before almost anybody could come and get the assistance, now it is all driven on income basis, and it's also driven on direct hardships related to COVID. So those things have to be proven. That takes a little bit more time to work that through the process. So I think we'll still see assistance coming to our customers, but it may not, it'll continue to slow down, I think, as time goes on. On the bottom left side of that page, you'll see the daily customer disconnections. As you recall, we have slowly begun re-implementing those after the long period of time where we did not disconnect any customer, but we have begun disconnecting again. In the month of September, we did no more than 100 a day just to be able to handle that through the call center as well as through all of our systems and personnel. And so last month in September, there were an average of about 3,800 customers that were eligible for disconnection. For the month of October, that dropped about 12% to about 3,300 on average per day, subject to disconnection. You see, we were in the mid-100s. We never really quite hit 200 in one day. And then we stopped any disconnections really after the 22nd of the month when the cold weather came in, and we typically stop disconnections when temperatures drop below freezing for extended periods of time. Then really across the bottom of that page are some statistics that we've been tracking that really got out of hand in the early months of the pandemic, had improved, and now we're starting to see that come back again. We are starting to see a large number of payment arrangements broken. Some of that has to do with we're coming at the end of summertime, where bills were high, where balances rose a lot, but we are starting to see a number of those arrangements being broken. But the last month in October, it was down from where it was in September. I think the good news is, though, we're in that middle, the payment arrangements established chart, where we saw that dip and where people weren't really going to any effort to repay their bills. That has risen to where we're still having about in the 10,000 range per month of payment arrangements being established. I think that's a good sign. People are doing what they can to try to set up their outstanding amounts on a payment arrangement and get those paid over a period of time. So that's kind of a overview of what I'm seeing right now. Did y'all have any questions related to all of that?
Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bertram, just to kind of go over that, if I look at that chart that says late fee eligible customer count,
Yes, sir.
that's basically 29,000
That
in
is
October.
correct. Yes.
So over almost a third of our accounts of our meters would be eligible for a late fee.
Yeah, and that's still very elevated from what we have seen historically, but it's always a fairly large number. It's usually in the 18 to 20,000 a month range, but it's still elevated from what we would normally see.
Okay. So I can see it went up from roughly 20 to almost 30 and then back down and then back up. So
Right. Yeah, we're starting to see that rise again. So that obviously is a signal that customers are maybe out of work or having reduced pay because of more than likely the COVID events out there.
right.
In combination of coming off of a summer where bills have been high and
Higher.
they're struggling to make some of those payments. But like I said before, we're still working with those customers as best we can to get them slowly caught back up.
And y'all interpret the next chart where they've established a payment arrangement. If that's high, that's a good thing if it relative to the number of late fee
Right.
accounts.
Historically, that does range in about 10,000 a month as payment arrangements that are established. And a lot of that, people may every month submit a payment arrangement because maybe they get paid a week after their bill is due, and so they just need to shift that bill out to match up more closely with their payment, their income. So we have a lot of folks that just do that every month. And with our new billing system, we'll be able to more tailor, due dates. Currently, due dates are set on the day after the, meter was read manually. But with the new system, we'll be able to tailor that a little bit better. But, when COVID was at its worst early on, it almost came to a standstill, people setting up payment arrangements. We weren't disconnecting. There was no incentive for them to, get caught up on their outstanding balances. And we still think that's a good sign that that's staying elevated, because that means people are still going to the effort to try to repay their outstanding balance.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all the questions I had.
I have a question for Mr. Andy Bertram. This is more of a, maybe a philosophical type question. Based upon the increase in COVID cases and the potential for tightening situations down again, do you anticipate that impacting this operation in terms of disconnects, obviously payment arrangements? Do you see something coming down the road?
Well, I do think that's a concern. I think that if we do see any changes in how, we're operating publicly, I do think that would definitely have impacts on, I think we'd have to take another look at disconnect policy again. I know we followed suit with the majority of other utilities across the state, the PUC, on where we suspended disconnects for a number of months to give folks a chance to, get back to regular routine. And of course, at the end of the summer, we saw that occurring. Mm-hmm. And now, things recently have turned around. So I do think that we could see a return to higher past due balances, a possibility that we may have to revisit the disconnect policy. But we're certainly trying to, we've all along been trying to get folks pointed to the assistance agencies to get the help that they can. There's been a significant amount of dollars out there, and I think there's still a good amount out there if people qualify. But, we'll continue to work with them and understand the situations a lot of people find themselves in.
Okay, can you kind of bring me up to speed on how we're getting that message out to customers that there is assistance available?
A lot of it has been handled through social media and through our website. There's, our website does contain that information. Also one-on-one, as customers call in to either set up an arrangement or, to express distress over not being able to meet their payments. We're one-on-one giving them information to who to reach out to, where to find the assistance that's still available. Some folks we found just aren't willing to go to that effort, and so it's unfortunate, but there's been some folks that have been unwilling to do that, but then others have been very well benefited from it and have been able to get a good amount of assistance to help them over the hump.
Yeah, I was really concerned about the person that's not trying to play the game with the system, but maybe the little grandmother that has lost her job because of whatever the situation, maybe COVID related. Right. How does she get the message there is money available? My concern is sometimes people don't know until it's too late, right, until their services are disconnected. So I guess what you're telling me, we don't really have a program or a marketing campaign to inform the public?
No, we do. It's through social media and through our website. This is the cityoflubbockutilities.com. And then, of course, we hear from most of the folks that are having issues with that. So I think all that together. And then I know we haven't done it today, but throughout the entire summer months, every meeting we had, and I can bring it back next month, I probably ought to, we had a listing of all the agencies, how to contact through phone or email, because a lot of the agencies were actually closed to public interaction, and so they wanted to handle a lot of that through phone or email or internet. And so I can certainly bring that back next month to continue to point that out to the public, in addition to everything else we're doing through social media for the most part.
Mr. Rose, would you like to address some of that, or?
Do you have anything else to add?
Andy pointed out a lot of our communications is through social media, but a lot of folks you're talking about might not engage on social media, be on Facebook and these types of things. So what we tried to do is we've created a series of stories that we put out through social, but I also get all of those to the media and have been trying to do a steady stream of interviews on where folks can go for assistance. As we got to the end of the summer, and we didn't see as many folks kind of being impacted, some of those stories dropped off, but we have a whole series of news stories that we'll be doing coming up to try to reach people through traditional media. Additionally, we've been putting inserts and onserts in the bills to, show them where they can go to get assistance. For anybody that pays their bill online and goes to City of Lubbock Utilities, the front page for several months has been a giant button that says, if you need assistance on your bill, click here, and here are all of the agencies. But another important partner in this are all of the council members. And so for these various different council members, as much as I can, I've been going to their district meetings and communicating with them, because sometimes they've got a pipeline to folks that we might not necessarily be able to connect with. So you're never going to get 100%. There's always going to be folks that kind of fall off. But I've also made outreach to different religious organizations, churches and things, so they have that information as well. But anybody that we can get in contact, that any board member want to direct us to, please let me know, because I think it is definitely going to be an all of the above approach as we go into the winter months and these possibly start tracking up. We've been watching the PUC very closely to see if they're going to put out some sort of a mandate like they did back in March that we followed. Right now, they don't seem to have any intent on doing that, but I could see if cases begin to spike across the state, as they have been, that the PUC may issue an order like they did in the spring that says all folks need to go to a non-disconnect policy. So.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Ms. Stafford?
When someone is disconnected, to be reconnected, do they have to pay in full, Mr. Bertram?
Historically, yes, but
Okay.
throughout this event, we've allowed them to, if they can just make their payment on the payment arrangement amount that they have missed, because usually that's what's happened. The folks have set themselves up on a payment arrangement to prolong that potential disconnect, and they have missed their first installment of that payment arrangement. Then they come up for disconnect. When they call in, we've been telling them, if you will just get caught up, we won't make you pay for the full amount that's outstanding, which we might normally have done in the past. We only make them come back and pay, see if we can get them to pay that first payment arrangement amount, which is usually, a fraction of what the total bill was. And so we're working with them to try to get caught up and not be overly harsh in those situations.
Right, I just didn't know what the policy was, that if you were disconnected, do you need to do the whole thing, or can you do a portion of it? I guess we work with people individually.
We have changed our practice to, historically, yes, we would say you have to be caught up in full to be reconnected. Now, we've said, let's just get you started on your.
It's more personalized now.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
On a one-on-one.
Yeah.
And once we do that, are we still trying to get them to those phone numbers where
Yes, we're always asking them.
assistance
We're
is?
always, pointing them that there are other avenues to help them through this situation. So
But
some at this point don't qualify. That's the problem right now is
right. The only qualifiers are COVID-related at this time. Is that
COVID and
correct?
income-based usually at this point. Where historically, when the crisis earlier on, anybody could show up. If you can't make your bill, they had money to give out. Now you're going to have to bring in your income and fit under a certain level to qualify for some of that. So some people who may be just above that, won't be able to get assistance maybe as easily as they might used to have. But there still is funding for those who desperately need it.
Okay, and thank you for your kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Bertram.
Thank you.
That was actually item 8. Sorry, I was out of order there. Item 9 is now up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there I don't think there's much, is there?
Item number 9 is the financials, and if y'all recall, we typically take a hiatus from presenting the financials in the late fall because we are going through our annual audit, and obviously all of the entries and all of that have not even been completed yet for September. So we'll begin bringing back to you next month at least the capital updates, and then more than likely in the January timeframe we'll start back with balance sheet, income statement, cash flows, the things that you're used to seeing on a monthly basis. So I'll bring back, next month, I'll also bring back a calendar of the audit. I meant to include it today, but I forgot. But I'll bring that back just so you can kind of get an idea of when we'll be back to the Finance Committee to talk about the annual audit, and then back to the board for the presentation of that audit. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, item 10 is review and distribute the following forms for the city of Lubbock. One was code of ethics, 2 was confidentiality statement, and 3 was conflict of interest. I believe that was for the new board members, correct?
Mr. Chairman, this is actually for all the board members to
Oh.
complete this year.
Annual?
Yes, these are the annual forms that the city secretary's office has requested be completed. They're provided in pages 60 to 64 of the book. But I also have extra copies today here if you'd like to get them filled out before you leave. But if you all would be able to fill those out and return them to Ms. Pierce by the end of next week, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay. Also, this would be a good time because we skipped over, we introduced Solomon, but Beatrice is here now, and you can go ahead and introduce her now. Who's a legal assistant, right?
Yes,
I don't
that's
know if
correct.
everyone had a chance to meet her, but go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Beatrice Dueñez is a new member of our legal team. She's our a new legal
Welcome, welcome.
assistant that joined us just last week, was your first week. So we're very excited to have her here, and you'll certainly be seeing emails from her.
That's where we should start getting our agenda and these meetings and everything else from.
That's correct. That's correct.
There you go. Thank you, ma'am. All right, item 11, Chairman's presentation regarding the EUB Board Committee assignments. You all recall, we've had Kelly stepped off, now we've got Solomon and stuff. You should have received, did we hand these out this page or no? Or did I just have a copy of it?
It's on page 65 of the book. I've got extra copies if you'd like.
Okay, 65 of the book. But just be looking over those within the next month or so. We'll be doing board appointments and committees. So if you, one of those, piques your interest, you would like to be on that one over another one, please get with me so we can kind of compile that information and have that to pass along once we set those in the next month or so. Questions there? That's page 65? Page 65, done. Here. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. Items 12 through 18 are in the book. If there are none of those that need to be pulled separately, I would entertain a motion for items 12 through 18. Okay, got a motion by Mr. Boatman, got a second by Mrs. Stafford. All those in favor do so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
There we go, Kevin. Thanks, sir. Oh, and Ms. Henry?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. That motion passes. Any opposed? Now it passes. There we go. Go out of order again. All right. No other business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Jane.
Good work.